I lost my job on a Christmas Eve one year. I walked across the road, walked into Parcel Force, and I started the following Monday. So as I say, I'm not a type of person that will sit and dwell on things for too long, because life's too short.
Tell us then, because I know now leads on to you buying so your first acquisition was it 8 point something million? So that's an astounding acquisition to make, buying your first company.
We're all problem solvers of some sort.
Yeah.
And I just took in the process and I ran with that process. And as I says, Think and Grow Rich, it's all about desire.
Welcome. This is Gull Khan, your money mindset expert. And today I'm so excited. I have one of my friends, someone I sort of met during one of my courses, and we became really good friends, and someone I admire, and someone I learned a lot from in my journey and in the new world that I'm in now in M&A. And so I'm here talking today to Philip Blitch. Welcome, Phil.
Hi, thanks for having me, Gull.
I'm so happy to be talking to you, Phil. This has been a long time coming, so I'm so excited. Phil, everyone's heard your intro. They know how wonderful you are, but please, in your own words, tell everybody what it is that you do.
Well, currently, I've started university full-time doing business and marketing, and we've also started up a business called Founders Lounge Stock Club with Charlie Fadden, which you also know from the course.
Yeah.
So Charlie and I decided earlier on this year, we put our heads together and we thought, how can we help people? And this is what we came up with. We started Founders Lounge, aimed at startup founders and also people in business to upskill their skills.
Absolutely wonderful. So, Phil, I know your personal story because we're friends, but I want you to sort of share with our audience, what is your background and how did we end up in the same course? What led you to this complete different area of your life from where you started originally?
Well, school, I didn't really like school, I was always competitive, joined all sorts of clubs. Always wanted to win things, it didn't always happen, but that's just where I was. At an early age, about 13 years of age, I got a paper round, first thing in the morning. Then about 14, I took on a bacon run, where I sold bacon to people. And then about 15, I also took on delivering the free press to people.
So you've been doing work from an early age?
Pretty much, yeah. Turned the age of 16, as I says, absolutely hated school, just didn't like it, didn't like the environment, what they were teaching us, etc., etc. So I ventured out into the business world. I got my first job at 16. I worked in the shipyards up in Clydebank, in the post room. I ran around the yard delivering project plans, mail,
anything and everything,
anything and everything. About 6-7 months into that, I got the opportunity of an apprenticeship, being a surveyor. Went into that, and about a year and a half later, that business actually got liquidated. It ran out of money. So I went from there to the Royal Mail, and I was a postman. I passed my driving test at the age of 18, and then I went looking towards an agency and started work as a courier. From there, I've had all sorts of different stages in my life, some that I'm not proud of, but as I say, I don't regret it because it's part of what...
It's made you who you are. So, I know from our discussions from beforehand, you've had so many different jobs in so many different sectors and so many different areas. And from what I know, you've taken everything up. This is great. And you just pull your sleeves up and you get on with it. So you tell us where did this work ethic come from? Because you're one of the hardest people, you're the hardest working people I know. And I know, especially in the M&A sector, buying businesses and, building businesses and growing the groups as we do, it's it's incredibly rewarding, but even more harder. It's incredibly difficult. It really is. And it really tests your courage, your ability to move forward from day to day at times, because it can really things can fall apart so quickly without you being your fault, because you are literally taking on someone else's baby and you inherit all the problems. So tell me, how did you get to that point by not having schooling behind you? Like when I went in the sector, I've got years of business experience, but also academically, I've got lots of education behind me. Whereas you come from a completely different background. Where does that the self-confidence come come for you? And how did you build that up? And how do you approach things in such a focused, direct way, which is amazing?
Yeah, well, as I says, I worked my way up, mostly in the transport industry. So I was in
Yeah,
the
you trucks. Yeah,
couriers.
you drove trucks as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I started off, as I says, agency work. I worked with some of the national courier companies.
Mm.
I ended up full time with one of them. I lost my job on a Christmas Eve one year. I walked across the road, walked into Parcel Force, and I started the following Monday. So as I says, I'm not a type of person that will sit and dwell on things for too long,
Yeah.
because life's too short.
Oh,
You know,
100%.
I'm an action taker. So as I said, I went over, started working with Parcel Force. I got to the stage a few years down the line, I decided I'll go and set my HGV licenses. Um, I got into HGVs. Then obviously there was an accident. A woman died. Um, I gave that up. I went back into being a courier again, a self-employed courier, and I ended up the manager that I had get sacked. Apparently threatened an operations manager in this courier company. Then the next one that came in, he was more interested in getting a young team, hiring a young team, and they were sort of getting things out the back door, and he was getting a cut of it. He get billeted as well. He get found out, and I ended up with the manager's job. So at the time, I started with 8 drivers in one depot in East Kilbride, which is in and around the Glasgow area. From there, we went into Bells Hill, and I ended up with 23 drivers working under me. And what I did was I worked with the guy who mentored me and showed me how to run businesses, a
Mm.
guy called Sean Greeley. And he was based down in Stockton and Tees. So Sean says to me, he says, right, how can we build this up? And then you can get profit share. And I says, well, what if we go and chat these other courier network stores and we send in the best drivers? So that's what we did. So we sent in the best drivers. On the conference calls, all the management teams up and down the country, they kept on raving about how our business was in and how our drivers were top performers. That got us in up and down the country. So I ended up going from the Glasgow area manager over to the Scotland area manager, where I actually controlled all the depots over on the east side of Scotland. So as I says, in the end, I left the business with 160 drivers in Scotland alone, and I managed that.
What
So
made you leave that business?
well, the profit shares wasn't really forthcoming. The wages were pretty low. So I left the business. They were actually pulling out of Scotland, to be honest with you, because it was too much. It became too much for me, 67.
One second, one second. I think it's saying my internet's unstable, so you're gonna have to repeat the last thing. Sorry, Kieran, can you edit that bit out? Let me put this on. One second. Oh, just give me a second. I'm gonna change this. Don't want this to happen again. Sorry about this. Can we just edit this out? Faye, please edit this on out. Am I back? Hello? Am I back? Am I back, Phil?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
hear you.
So I'll ask that question again. We'll just start from that again. Hey, in terms of why do you leave? So what made you leave that role in the end then?
Well, the company that I worked for, they put their notice into the two largest areas in which we worked. And I just decided at the time, you know what,
To move on.
I'll move on, because when you're like working in there and you're 7 years, 7 peak periods, I was getting phone calls up to midnight from angry depot managers if some of the drivers had failed some service, to the morning operations managers phoning me from 2 o'clock in the morning. So as I say, for about 6 weeks, this went on every year over 7 years. So I thought, I'll take the stress and the pressure off myself a wee bit and I'll start up on my own. So I did. I got 3 runs in a courier company. I sent in 3 drivers of my own that used to work for the old company, but obviously they'd pulled out. So these guys were looking for work, got them vans, got them their fuel cards, and then I invoiced the company every month. And from there, as I says, I was driving trucks as well. And then it got to the stage where I wasn't really focused too much on the business side of things. So I just stuck to driving the HGVs for a while.
So tell us then, because I know that now this leads on to you buying so your first acquisition was it 8 point something million? So that's an astounding acquisition to make, buying your first company for about 9 million. So talk us through that. How did you get that? First of all, how did you, find the deal? And secondly, more importantly, how did you have the confidence to go from, because up until then you've been running businesses which were, a decent amount, but on a very small, a lot smaller scale, I think under the million mark. And then your first company that you buy is around just shy of 10 million. So talk us through how that happened.
Well, as I say, I worked as a depot manager for another courier company. I went in and I solved their problems, because they were losing money week on week. The shareholders just couldn't understand how this was working. As I say, Sean, the guy who got me into that side of things, he was the one, he recommended me to go over and sort it all out. I went over and I tried to sort it out, and the managing director at the time, I was getting the results, the desired results for the shareholders, the other shareholders and investors, and the managing director just didn't want it done that way. He was a computer programmer, and his attitude was, the computer's smarter than you and I put together. I says, well, I totally get that, Jeff, but here's the thing. He says, what's that? I says, the computer doesn't understand real-time traffic,
Yeah. Or human psychology.
Yeah. So, as I says, I was there for maybe 4 or 5 months. I was driving the results, but it wasn't in the way in which he wanted it to go, because he was sort of trying to develop a software package which he could then sell to other networks.
So he had ulterior motives. So how did he get to buying the company then?
So I got to the stage where, what was I, maybe about I was in my 40s. I'm 48 now. About maybe 5, 6 years ago, I picked up a book that somebody had gave me about 20 years earlier called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
About time too, you read it.
Oh, as I said, I wish
20 years too late, but it's okay. It's never too late.
I wish I'd read it maybe 20 years earlier when my friend gave me it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just sort of opened my mind up to what the possibilities are and what's out there, you know. And then obviously my parents, they gave me some of my inheritance early. They says, well, there's no point in you having it when you're in your 50s and 60s and you can't really enjoy it. Just don't go down to the bookies and gamble it all away, you know. So I came across Jonathan, and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to take a chance and invest in myself here. So I joined the course, and that's where I met yourself. I learned the process over a period of time, you know, being on the webinars, the in-person, the live networking, that was fantastic. That's priceless, as you know.
That is, I think the in-person, and not just learning from Jonathan, I think that I learned more from my peers. So I learned more from yourself, and other amazing, really intelligent people, and who look at things from different perspectives. Like we're all problem solvers. That's what we are. We are problem solvers. We all come to the solution or work out the solution in a different way. And that is what you learn from. So that's invaluable. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's so many times I went to Jonathan's courses, and as I says, it was just, I was getting golden nuggets every time I turned up. You know, different speakers, different attitudes, different ways of looking at things. As you says, we're all problem solvers of some sort. And I just took in the process and I ran with that process. And as I says, Think and Grow Rich, it's all about desire. You know, you've got to want to desire it enough.
Yes.
So for me, the only equation they never teach at school, which is the most important in life, is desire plus persistence equals success.
100%.
You know?
Persistence is without doubt is the missing key. People can have the desire, but if they're not persistent with it, and it has to be over a certain period of time, I have to add that in. And the bigger the goal, the longer you have to stick to it. You can't. I mean, I think everything is achievable if you're persistent.
Yeah, definitely, as I say. So I remember us sitting in, and we were actually, Jonathan asked us to sit there, and what was the goal? What was the end goal, you know? So I came up with a figure. I don't know if I should say it here. 50 million. That's what I wanted as an exit plan.
We talk about 100 million billions here, so we can discuss 50 million. That's not a problem at all.
So that was my goal. And then the thing was, he turned around and says, right, reverse engineer that goal. And I sat there and I thought to myself, why are we reverse engineering it? That's where I want to get to. But it wasn't until I started working the steps back. How many multiples of EBITDA do you sell in your industry to the likes of venture capitalists, hedge funds, and so on? That I came up with 2.25 million EBITDA. So I thought that's achievable, you know, and I started heading towards it, you know. But as you know, I think I signed seven heads of terms documents over like a 2-year period. Very time consuming because you're sitting there and you've got your head into numbers all the time. You're looking at asset lists. You're looking to see if the numbers stack up before you can even make an offer in these businesses.
It seems. I think the reason why not many people do what we do is because it is very mentally exhaustive. You have to look at the finances. You have to look at, and then you have to look at the human dynamics. Who's running it? Who will run it once those, the current directors leave? Because you don't want another job. And again, are you able to make the business sustainable or grow? The idea is for growth because you have to have growth. Otherwise, how are you going to sell it as a multiple, right? And being able to do all that, and then having to deal with those dynamics of those sellers, whether if they stay on for as an earnout or if they leave and they still give you headaches afterwards. I mean, there's so many things to juggle. And if you're signing 7 heads of terms, that's just unbelievable. The amount of negotiating and talking and talking through and coming to an agreement. I mean, signing head of terms is just the first step, but then getting to that is just a nightmare at times.
Yeah. Well, as I say, about 150,000 in due diligence costs later, Deals fell apart for different reasons. you know,
I mean,
that,
that's something that's fine. I don't, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to whether you can really push things over the edge. I know I've done that recently. We literally were on the 11th hour signing on, completing our second acquisition. And on the 11th hour, I didn't even change. The terms I had in the heads of terms, I stuck to it. Most buyers would actually negotiate after DD, after legal and accounting DDs, due diligence, and would find ways to, lower the price or change the terms in their favor and whatever. I don't do things like that. I'm very honest and upfront. Unless there's a general reason for it, I'm not going to go and negotiate just for the sake of it. That's the thing. That's where me and Jonathan are very poles apart. He does all those tactics, and I do none of those. So I'm like, no. I'm going to stick to the, being very honest and authentic and real. And if it works, it works. Yet, and I thought, oh, everything's going well. On the 11th hour, one of the director goes, no, I'm not happy with the terms. I want 2/3 now, whatever else now, and I want everything in within 1 year. I'm like, I can't afford to do that. I spent ages trying to figure out the numbers with my accountant to give this to you. Are you kidding me? Seriously, on the 11th hour when we're literally supposed to sign on Friday, on Monday, leave. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not signing. I'm like, oh my God. So the point I'm making is you can do everything correctly, do everything to make it a win-win situation, and yet it's human psychology. The greed it's nothing more than just greed. So greed comes in and things can fall apart. So at the moment, at this moment in time, I don't know if that deal's going to go through. And I spent money on legal DDs and accounting DDs. And all the time, like the last 6 months I've been investing since March, working on this deal since March. As we speak right now, I have no idea if we're going to go ahead. So that's okay. That's all part and parcel, Phil.
yeah. As I say, there's many different things that can throw a spanner into the works, so to speak.
Yeah.
One of them, the vendor that had been in negotiations through a broker.
I don't like breakers. I don't work through brokers.
No. Well, as I say, I'd sent the letter. The vendor gave it to the broker. The broker reached out to me and says, you've sent my client a letter. He is interested in selling his business. Would you like to have a chat? So I says, okay. So as I say, the business was in Scotland. It was fairly close to where I am. We went 6-7 months down the line. I'd says to the broker, make sure he gets advice from his accountant and finds everything out. So we'd spent our 7 months. We gets to the week before. The vendor eventually speaks to his accountant, who told him, because you're a sole trader business and you've had the capital gains up front, you're now in a balancing charge of, I think it was 45 or 47%. So then the deal changed at the last minute. They wanted to, instead of me giving $1 million for the assets, it was 400,000 for the assets and 600,000 in goodwill. But then that would have landed me with, at the time, 150,000 of a corporation tax bill, which meant that the deal wasn't achievable then because it couldn't finance that as well. So, but to pull out of that, but as I say, you live and learn. But yeah, I don't need brokers.
Yeah, I think this is the lesson that we both learned. It's you can do everything by the book correctly and I now that I'm in this world, I don't know many people who are like me and you, right? Who are honest, upfront, and doing things with integrity. There's a lot of shoddy business people out there, but then I think those are the ones who are not successful eventually because they do fall flat on their face. And if you cheat someone at, it's karma. You cheat someone at one thing, it will be done to you. So I think the honest and integral people are the ones who get ahead in life. I personally believe that. But it doesn't mean that, just because you're honest, people who are, on the opposite side will be honest and abide by the same rules. So I think that's the world of the business. It is what it is. But I do believe that as long as you have confidence in yourself, and you do, and I do, this is why people like you and I get ahead. And whenever life throws off the horse kind of a thing, we sort of get up, dust ourselves off, and get back on the horse. And I'm like, okay, I'm going for a ride again. So just wrapping this up, what's the one lesson? I know that the 10 million deal that you did, it was, and then in the end, he ended up closing the business for various reasons, and no fault of your own. This is when the oil prices hit the sky and whatever else, and the interest rate went through the roof. So invoice financing went from being 2.5% to like 8-9% or something ridiculous. So you had so many things come at you left, right, and center, and I witnessed this. So hats off to you. And you stood the ground, tried to do your best to keep the business going. But in the end, it just wasn't meant to be, because you drive trucks and the fuel prices were at sky high because Russia just attacked Ukraine, and you had all that malarkey, and everything stopped, whatever else. What's the one lesson that you learned? Because I know you, even though everyone around was like, oh, this has happened to Phil, or everyone's really shocked that this happened to you, but it was just, there's nothing that you could have done. There's absolutely nothing you could have done. It's sometimes it is what it is. But you got up. I remember speaking to you on the phone. You got up and you just, okay, this is fine. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to do this now. And you just got up and started doing something else. Tell me, how did you get that self-confidence? Where did that ability come from for having such a big knock? Like, you had an amazing company, you did everything, and you did everything correctly, yet circumstances were such which were beyond your control, which meant you had to close that business and let go of your staff. And I know that you got a lot of bad thing that, oh, you mismanaged or whatever, because I know you didn't. But people, obviously staff members, when they lose their jobs, they're all going to blame the boss, isn't it? Yeah. How did he handle all of that malarkey? How did he handle all of that pain and that pain of losing a business where you've put your everything into it to make it grow and do everything correctly?
That's a good question. As I say, it was about a year ago. It was a year past last week. I let go of the managing director, who happens to still be a good friend of mine. We still meet up and stuff. I had to let him go at the beginning of November last year. Nobody gave me a hope in hell of reaching Christmas, but I managed to get us to the end of January. It was a lot of sleepless nights, travelling up and down the country.
Yeah.
Just tried everything possible, because I'm not a quitter.
I remember.
I probably caused myself way more in the way of stress, because I maybe should have done what everybody told me and sort of called it a day, a month or so earlier. But as I say, being as competitive as I am, I wasn't going to take it easy. I wasn't going to lie down, so I pushed on. I managed to sort of lay people off, take on more responsibility myself. Although that sort of had a detriment to my family life. I
remember. We did it.
Being a single parent. So, as I say, it was a stressful period, and it was stressful for another couple of months afterwards. You've got angry ex-employees, you've got angry suppliers, angry subcontractors. How could you have done this? Surely you would have known earlier, blah, 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 But I think until you've actually experienced something like this, it's like at one stage, effectively you're a millionaire, although it's not in cash, it's in assets. And then less than a couple of years later, you're sitting rock bottom with nothing again,
Yeah.
But as I say, I've went through a life and I've had lots of setbacks in my life, As I say, I was in prison. Something I don't regret. I shouldn't have done it, but I don't regret it, because, as I say, it's made me the person that I am today. As I say, a woman died due to an accident. Again, that set me back. That was mental health. I'd lost my relationship with my ex-fiance through that, because I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I had post-traumatic stress disorder. But I think as humans, everybody suffers setbacks.
Yeah,
Some are bigger than others, some are smaller than others, but every single person suffers some sort of setbacks in their life.
yeah,
And I think what helped me was not only my daughter, because you need to practice what you preach, you know. So I couldn't be sitting there down in the dumps, although there was something she said cut me right to my bone. I told her to go upstairs and get changed or something, and she says, "You can't tell me what to do." I says, "I can. I'm your dad." She says, "You're not even the boss at JJ&S anymore. So how can you
oh,
tell me what to do?"
oh,
So, as I say, with children, it's very black and white. There's no grey areas. But as I says, I've got my daughter to a stage where I told her quitters never win and winners never
never
quit.
quit. Yeah,
So I've instilled that into my daughter, and
yeah,
then when she's looking at me for sort of inspiration or anything else, I couldn't be moping around. I had to be 100%. What am I going to do next? And as I say, my network, yourself, Gavin,
mm,
Jonathan, Harry, Mima, Lindsay, loads of people were on the phone to
yeah.
me. And they weren't looking for advice. They were looking to give me the support, you
Yeah,
know.
it was I think the one thing that I would say is what I walked away from from doing that program along with the knowledge. I think the knowledge is invaluable, but it was the community of people that you can trust and turn to, and actually friends. I can call friends. I can turn up. I can even now. I remember I've said this to you multiple times when I was going through my deal. I was on the phone with you multiple times thinking, oh my God, we got this problem now. We got that problem now. How do you do this? How do I do it? And I remember you sitting on the phone and saying, okay, calm down, take a breath, and let's go through it. Okay, try this and try that approach. And I had that with you, and I had it with Alison, and and also with with Katrina. It's that support network that you need around you, like-minded entrepreneurs who can understand the dilemma that you're going through to be able to
Yeah.
give you the support when you need it. And that thing that is really, really that the group of people that we met were amazing and are amazing. And that's why we're still in touch. The course finished a while ago, but we're still, we have a community where we sort of connect with each other and talk to each other. And that's really beneficial. So you really do need to have a a great network of people, like-minded people, not only the friends you grew up with in, college and school and stuff, but people who are now on the similar journey to yourself, who can be there to support you. And I think the one thing that I will say is, these people, they're not jealous of each other. Like Alison's and or I've never found anybody to be jealous of me and vice versa. So it's that support where they come and support you, not necessarily bring you down because you're doing better than them or they think or you perceive to be doing better than them, which is really important. You need to have that network around you, and that's what I'm hearing. That this was a tough time, but you got a lot of support from your peers, from people who became friends, and that's how you came through. So we're going to wrap this up now. Phil, how do we connect with you? Someone wanted to connect with you. Where can you find me on the internet?
Well, you'll find me on LinkedIn under my name,
Hmm.
um, www.founderslounge.club, which is the community that we're building.
Hmm.
It's people aimed at startups and people that are looking to get into business, that maybe they've got an idea for business, but they don't know how to grow the business, where to find the customers, how to navigate maybe certain social media platforms where their audience could be.
Hmm.
Um, there's business intelligence, e-commerce, entrepreneurship, social media, and marketing. So it's a digital education platform, but we'll also be holding live events. So we've already held the first one. We held that at the British Computer Society's offices in London. We collaborated with them. The next one is 18th of January. I'm not going to tell you where because at the moment we're still working on it. We're
Okay.
working on the
Well, that's
speakers.
fine. They can they can go and check the website out and get the details themselves. So if you're watching us, if you're listening to us on the podcast, then the links that Phil has just mentioned will be in the show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, then down below. In the description section, we'll have the links for him too. Go check him out. And I think if you are an entrepreneur or you want to be an entrepreneur, you have an idea that you want to discuss or you want to be a part of like-minded community, then I highly recommend you check out the Founders Club. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have to have you back for Money Talkies, but today, thank you so much for being honest and sharing your journey so vulnerably. Thank you so much. It's much appreciated.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to me and Phil today. I will be back with another amazing guest, finding out how they changed their life by changing their mindset. Until the next time we meet, this is Gull Khan signing off. Take care and bye for now.